So today I'm just going to do a quick demo on this external module called Choice Columns. And what this module does is it allows you to create columns for radio buttons or checkbox fields. And it adds an action tag that allows you to specify how many columns you want. It gets ignored. So if you do have it in a field that's not a checkbox or a radio button, it gets ignored. And it also ignores radio buttons and checkboxes that are part of a matrix, a field matrix. It also works with the enhanced radio buttons and checkboxes for surveys. And it allows you to have up to 99 columns. After that, it'll just ignore if you have a value that's greater than 99. And then you can actually use it in piping with the if action tag and embedded fields. So it's just that you just specify the number of columns. But when you have an alignment, and I'll show this in a minute, when you have your alignment as horizontal, then your choices will go horizontally. So if you have 3 columns, it'll go 1, 2, 3, left to right. If you have them vertical, then it'll go down and across. And then if you have your alignment set to the left, this is what they recommend because it gives you the full width of the container down here. And if you have it to the right, you guys would know that in REDCap, when you have your field set to the right alignment, the left half is the label and the right half is the choices. So you're kind of limited on space. And another thing that I'm not going to demo in this, but just something to know, is that it also supports the right to left languages like Arabic. So if you have these choices here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it actually will show them backwards. I mean, backwards to us, but left to right for people who read from left to right. And they have an example here. Let me scroll down. And let me zoom in here. Oh, that image isn't going to get any bigger. There we go. So for example, for Arabic, the values will go from left to right here. So the numbers will be on the right, sorry, right to left. The numbers will go onto the right, and then the values would read that way from right to left. So let me close this. And I just created a survey to show you real quick. So this is the default alignment. So right horizontal, like I was talking about how the left half is taken up by the label. And I just have 10 choices here. And these are the enhanced survey buttons, if anybody's not familiar with those. So this is right horizontal, or actually, yeah. So right horizontal. And you can see here that this is defaulting to 2 columns. Let me see real quick because it should. Oh, that's right. Because what it does, it's column based, but it's because it's automatically wrapping. So let me go back to. Let me just change this, or sorry, let me go to the survey settings here and just change this to the regular button so we can see first off. Because it's giving you the impression of columns, but the columns aren't set. So you can see here that it's just wrapping as it's going. And you can see one of the big problems with that is that this value for 6 is over here and you have no choice, no way to move that over. So, and this is for vertical. This is left horizontal. You can see that it goes all the way across, and then left vertical just has it underneath here, underneath the label. So I have set this for using the action tag choice columns equals 3. So for the right horizontal, you can see now that it is going left to right. and it's just filling up however it goes. Um, and then for the right vertical, it's going vertically. So it's filling up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a new column and then a new column. And then for left horizontal, same thing, but it's going across the entire window and it's going vertical or horizontally. And then for left vertical, it's going uh, vertically. And you'll notice that with the horizontal, it's kind of filling up more of the space, but with the vertical, it has a little bit of padding on the left here. So you can see these options don't exactly line up from field to field. But it would just depend on how you needed those values. I mean, this is really not that important, this little space here. So if we go back to the survey settings, and actually, let me go to the designer because I'll just show you in here. This is another thing to notice is that in the designer, these will show up the normal way they show up. They won't. So if you do want things in columns, you have to set the action tag here. So choice columns, and you just say how many columns you want. But you have to go to a record and open it so you can see how your values or your columns are being displayed. They won't display here in the designer. And then you can just change your column numbers however you want. So if I wanted to go down here and change this to 6, and I'll just change this one to like 4. And then I'll go back. I'm going to go back to the survey settings here and just add the enhanced. I feel like they're easier to see. So now you can see here that I have 6 columns, but I only have 5, or I only have 10 values. And so it's filling them up this way and leaving the 6th one. And then I have 4 going this way. So that's another thing that you might want to look into is how many choices you have. And this is really good for things if you have a list of medications and you have a lot of drugs to check or things like that. And so instead of having a long list that's vertical or horizontal like this, where you have to scroll, especially if you're using a tablet, it's nice that you can break it up. And one thing you should notice is that the values will fill the entire uh, field width. So here for these 2 that are broken, like this is without the columns. So you can see here that it just wraps. It's just wrapping as it goes. And then this is left vertical, so it just fills the whole width. But whenever you have the columns, it's automatically adjusting to the values. And you do want to be careful with setting your values. If you're going to have a long text, you may want to take that into consideration with how many columns you're setting. And one example here is, let's see, they have this group the group that created this has a demo, and they just use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But as we get down here, you can see that the horizontal placement is making it to where the characters are not, the words aren't being, they're not complete. They're being broken up by character lines. And then you can see here that these aren't even being displayed properly because there's so many values. So that's something to consider, the way that REDCap renders these when you're making these design decisions. But it's really simple. All you need to do is, and I'll go just to show you in case you guys are unfamiliar with setting up an external module. You would go to the external module section here and click Manage. And let me just disable this to show you how to re-enable it. You would select Enable a Module. And you can either search through the list or just type choice columns here or choice or anything like that. It'll automatically filter, select enable. And then some of these external modules require configuration, but this one doesn't. So there's no choices here. This just gives you a brief explanation of what it does. You don't have to set anything. All it's doing is when it's enabled, it's providing you with this choice columns action tag, which you could copy directly from here. And then whenever you put it in your fields, then you can paste it in whatever field you want. So it won't show up in the action tags here. I don't believe it does. Oh, I guess it does. So when you do, that's nice. It'll pop up here once it's enabled, and give you some information there. So that's really nice. So you would be able to click on it, or actually, didn't it used to have the add button for those? But you
Yes,
just,
but not from within here. So if you went back to the,
oh, it's down here.
yes, yeah, try
Mm,
that and see if it shows up.
there we go. Yeah. So that's nice. So you'd be able to just add it directly from there and then just tell it how many columns you want. So it's a really simple external module. It's really nice. We used to do this. Years ago I had a demo that I used the CSS um the CSS injector to do that, to kind of build that functionality in I can't remember if it was a CSS. I think it was a CSS one. Um so that was a lot more complicated because you had to tinker with the XML, or sorry, the HTML, and add some CSS rules. And so this one is nice that you just have to add an action tag and it does it for you.
We used to use that all the way back in the pandemic when we did the scheduling for the blood draws for COVID. We
Oh,
remember
right.
the scheduling piece and we wanted
All
different
the
time
times.
limits. Yeah.
Mm.
So, and that was just a godsend for you to come up with that because that made it so much cleaner for these users. And our users were at that time were anyone in the state scheduling a blood draw for COVID at a select site. So we needed our times laid out nicely so people could see what was available. So he developed that, and it looked great. Still does, but this, God, just think how much easier it would have been with this.
Yeah, yeah, especially because the other problem with doing it with the CSS injector is I would have to design this with CSS. And if something like this happened where there was a blank, I'd have to go back in and change, you're just tweaking the width values here and there and making sure that the columns are being set. And you also have to set the space. I think I had to set the spacing in here as well. It's kind of like when you do columns in Microsoft Word, where it wants to know how big you want your columns and then how big you want the gaps. And yeah, it was kind of a pain. There was a lot of trial and error, whereas this, you just add the action tag and you would be able to open it up and look at it and be like, okay, yeah, that's what I want. So, does anybody have any questions about that?